Senate, people become your friends, your brothers, and your sisters. And I served with Barbara. She was a great supporter of mine when I was running in Colorado, when no one ever thought that I could win. But Barbara was there with me every step of the way, and at the end of the day, the time that I spent with her in the U.S. Senate were 4 of the most enjoyable years of my life. And I can tell you, as you watch Barbara Boxer work in the United States Senate, you never, ever have to doubt where she stands. You never, ever have to doubt what her passions are. She's a fighter for California, and she's a fighter for the world. Barbara Boxer.
Oh, thank you. I hope you can put my entire statement in the record, and I'll, because I may divert from it from time to time, starting right now, to say to you how proud I am of your achievements, and I think you're going to be such a great Secretary of the Interior. And since we are kind of like brother and sister, I guess my message today is listen to your sister. In its final days in office, the Bush administration offered a parting gift to the oil and gas industry, Mr. Secretary, a plan to open up nearly all of our nation's carefully protected coastline to offshore drilling, including, as you pointed out, 130 million acres off California, from San Diego to Santa Barbara and from Monterey to Mendocino. When you halted that plan earlier this year, Mr. Secretary, you called the Bush proposal, quote, a headlong rush of the worst kind. And I can't tell you how proud I was of you at that moment. You spoke the truth, and I couldn't agree with you more. And we really do thank you for coming here today to hear our voices. For Californians, our coast is not only a God-given environmental treasure and our legacy to our children and our grandchildren, it is also one of our greatest economic assets, just as it is. Ocean-related tourism and recreation and fishing generate $23 billion in economic activity, and Mr. Secretary, 390,000 jobs, all related to that coastal economy. California is home to 4 national marine sanctuaries. I will name them: the Gulf of the Farallones, Cordell Bank, Monterey Bay, and the Channel Islands. They were approved by Congress and past administrations to protect marine species and habitat. Allowing new drilling off our coast would undo years of hard work and investment to preserve those areas. Put simply, new drilling sites off our pristine coast would be an environmental and economic disaster for our state. And if there is one takeaway that I hope you will leave this room with, it's that. New drilling would be an environmental and economic disaster for our state. Now, I can't speak for other states, and I know Oregon is going to speak with eloquence on this, and you're right, some other states may feel differently. Our state clearly is saying to you today, no. Resources than that. Now, the Energy Information Administration estimates that even if we drilled across all the areas that were previously in the moratoria, it would meet 1% of our daily oil consumption by 2030. Listen to this. The equivalent of less than 6 gallons of gas per vehicle per year. And even they concluded under the Bush administration that the impact on oil prices would be, and I quote, insignificant. Insignificant. That's what they said. Mr. Secretary, you and I know raising fuel economy standards, which I know our president supports, is a far better way to go with far better results. Some argue that drilling along our coast can be done in an environmentally sensitive manner, but our experience in California tells us a different story. We still remember the 1969 blowout at an oil rig near Santa Barbara that spilled more than 200,000 gallons of crude oil, blackened 35 miles of coastline, and killed 4,000 birds. And we all remember, those of us who were around then, what that was like. That was way back in 1969. But the more important point for me to make to you today is that I'm going to show you a photo of a more recent 1997 rupture at an offshore oil pipeline off Santa Barbara. More than 6,800 gallons of crude oil were released. This is after the oil companies say, oh, no problem anymore. They've got the technology. We still have these spills. And we saw 17 miles of beaches fouled, 700 birds killed. And by the way, we're not just talking about the problem of major spills here. We know that routine drilling produces toxic contaminants. The NAS, the National Academy of Sciences, estimates that small spills and discharges released an average of 2 million gallons of oil per year during the 90s. That's 25% more oil than was released from tanker accidents. And we know, of course, that more offshore drilling leads to more tankers transporting oil, and that increases the risk. So there are other problems besides the risk of oil spill. For example, the oil rigs, pipelines, and other infrastructure displace other coastal businesses and devalue coastal properties. Californians understand these risks, because I know you want to hear the voices. I have a few quotes from California. Some of them are out there today in the audience. Last fall, I received more than 300 letters from businessmen and women all across our country, across our state, concerned about efforts to expand drilling along our coast. So here's one from Zeke Rader, who I know is right here looking at me. We were in this since the 70s. Zeke, will you stand up? He's from the Pacific Federation of Fishermen. Zeke Rader is working so hard to keep the fishing industry viable, Mr. Secretary. This is what he wrote. He said, he wrote of the impairment that drilling would have on the jobs and businesses of his members in the Fishermen's Association and their communities and their ability to produce a healthy food product for the nation. Very important. Charles Ehlers, president of the Anaheim Orange County Visitors and Convention Bureau, wrote, quote, and this is Orange County, quote, this issue really unites us across party lines. If our coastline's beauty and environmental integrity are compromised, he says, it will cost our state millions of dollars in terms of jobs, sales tax, and investments, unquote. Bob Faulkner of Faulkner Advertising in Santa Barbara wrote of, quote, how important a pristine environment is to the vitality of this tourist-oriented community. He writes, we Santa Barbarans know from first-hand experience the destruction that an oil slick can bring, unquote. So, Mr. Secretary, I think I'm preaching to the choir, but you're a very fair person, and you don't tell us right now what your decision is. But I hope you'll agree that instead of putting our California coast and our economy in jeopardy, we need to focus on making the serious investments to get us to America's new energy future. We need to look to green technologies that will create new jobs, reduce our dependence on oil, and help us fight global warming. And I want to speak for just a minute in a different hat, which is as chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee of the Senate. I can say to you with utter confidence that what we need now is not to drill in these pristine areas and risk our coastlines, but to transform and jumpstart our economy, moving toward clean, green energy. And to those who say, wait a minute, this isn't the time, we're in a recession, I've had a series of hearings on this, and I can tell you, from the business community, from the labor community, from the environmental community, from local officials, from governors, what we're hearing is very clear, that in this recession, as we're looking for a way out of it, the way out of it is to embrace this new green agenda. not to drill in pristine areas off our coast. Mr. Secretary, we wish you could stay here for days and days and days. We have so much to show you, not only the beauty of our coast, but the entrepreneurs and the scientists who are pioneering these clean energy solutions. From more efficient batteries to power a new fleet of electric cars to advances in solar and wind and geothermal that will transform the way we produce and use energy. Our Conference of Mayors, U.S. Conference of Mayors, estimates that by 2038, industries associated with renewable energy and energy efficiency could produce 4.2 million new jobs and account for as much as 10% of job growth over the next 30 years. So instead of putting, nationwide millions of coastal jobs at risk by drilling, we could create an additional 4.2 million green jobs and be far better off. As President Obama said in his first address to Congress, quote, "We know the country that harnesses the power of clean renewable energy will lead the 21st century." That is why I'm so pleased that this hearing is also touching on the issue of offshore renewable energy. That's something we need to look at. Our beautiful coastline and our coastal economy are too precious to risk by allowing new oil and gas drilling, especially when we know the answer to America's energy needs is investment in new, cleaner technologies, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. So my last chance to say thank you, Mr. Secretary, for coming here. Thank you for bringing your qualified staff. Thank you for hearing all of these voices. We are proud that you're a Secretary of the Interior, and we know we'll be proud when we hear your decision on offshore drilling off the state of California. Thank you very much.
Santa Barbara, Ventura Basin, and the Oceanside Capistrano Basin. So let me start with Grace, and then go to Lieutenant Governor, and then end up with the senior member here with Senator Boxer. Comment for just a quick minute or two from your point of view as to whether or not there's a difference with respect to each of those proposed planning areas for oil and gas development. Senator Boxer.
Okay. Well, let me just say the risk goes up exponentially the more you drill. I mean, that's just sort of a no-brainer. It's like if you live in a very high crime area, Mr. Secretary, and your teenage daughter says, I'm tired of being in the house, I want to go out alone, and you have an argument with her, and finally you agree, okay, one night a week I'll let you go out in this high crime area. And then she comes back and says, well, I'd like to go out 7 nights a week in this high crime area. You're raising the risk of her having a problem. So the fact is, you're just going to raise the risk exponentially the more you drill, even where there is drilling in state waters in this case. Those decisions were made a long time ago, and there's a lot of drilling going on. And it's very nerve-wracking to people who live near it. All you have to do is look at it, and all you need to do is see what's been displaced because of it, and to say, well, gee, we already got the first scratch on the car, now let's just scratch on the whole car. I just think it's a wrong way to think. I think what we need to do is cut our losses and just say no to future new drilling. Let me be very brief with you on this. That's hard for Senator, but I will be. We have these fantastic marine sanctuaries, which Lynn Woolsey talked about, the new addition that we're going to make. That's a long story why it got held up, but we're going to get it done this year. But the fact is, if you look at those marine sanctuaries that go for the Farallones up in the north here, the Cordell Bank, the Monterey Bay and Channel Islands, they're all over the coastal areas. And I want to talk to you about the Channel Islands, which is near Santa Barbara. And what we know about that is, it's the most ecologically sensitive area in the whole country. So where you have made these investments in these sanctuaries, any additional risk is unwarranted. And I would reiterate again, the multi-billions of dollars that are generated in these areas. So if you're looking just at hard, cold economics, I think you just come down on the side of no new drilling, because we have developed an incredible coastal economy that is a bright spot even in these tough times, and we can't risk it one bit more. So yes to looking at alternative ways of getting us the energy we need, yes to conservation, yes to energy efficiency, and I would end on this point. You're looking at people in a state here, out here, the citizens, the elected officials, who have long believed and understood that energy is important to our state's growth. But this is what we've done over the last 25, 30 years. We have kept energy per capita use totally flat, while the rest of the country has gone up this way, just double. Now the space between, this is kind of hard to do, it's hard to say. The space between holding it flat and this runaway, lack of concern really, or lack of information about overuse of energy, just this can make a huge difference in the global warming problem, in the pockets of our consumers and the rest. I'm going to have to go because, very sadly, I am speaking at a memorial for that little 8-year-old girl, Sandra Cantu, and so I'm going to need to go there momentarily. But upon my leaving, there is one beautiful poster I'd like to give to you as a memory of this trip. And instead of looking at dead birds and oil spills, this is Lynn Wilsey's district. This is the Sonoma Coast. You are going to be a great Interior Secretary, and one of your greatest legacies is making sure that our unspoiled areas of coast, whether it's Jackson's or Grace's or everybody else's, the whole coast, you can make that happen. And we're putting our faith and our hopes in you, and we give you this beautiful poster with a lot of love and a lot of faith in you. Thank you very much, Ms. Secretary.